Google. Let's go get him again.
Welcome back to the Robezoid channel. I'm your host, Mark, and welcome to your Sampling Samples Saturday. Every weekend, we love to sample new brands, new fragrances. Let's get into it. Today's sample is on the brand of Nasomatto. Definitely not a new brand to my nose. I own at least a dozen of their fragrances, almost the whole line. And this is their newest release, their 2023 release. I just squeaked in the Sampling Samples the year of launch. Yes, it made it, barely, because it's been on the Subscriber's Choice panel for months. It's been there since, I think, the launch of Subscriber's Choice when I first launched it this year. So this is your Subscriber's Choice, your choice for me to review. Finally getting my nose on this. Nasomatto's marketing is something that you kind of want to watch it, you know, and kind of, it's always a polarizing thing. So I already know a lot about this brand. I take a lot of their marketing with a grain of salt. Push the envelope, Galtieri. Do what you gotta do. You know, some brands like to do this, you know, push the envelope with their branding, their marketing, bottles. You know, this is where you want to be. You know, some brands are very serious and some brands want to be, you know, super high end and they want their whole look to be squeaky clean. And then there's brands like Nasomatto. You can call it a gimmicky brand, sure. But the marketing, honestly, for me personally, I always take it with a grain of salt. I have some fun with it, and I actually have some fun with this fragrance brand. Personally, when I first found out about this brand way back when I first started on YouTube, 2010, and I smelled Black Afghano for the first time, I actually took this brand very seriously. And then after a while, I kind of figured out what this brand was all about. Now this one is, actually I got a lot to talk about on this one. This one has been highly compared to a fragrance that I've been seeing a lot in this YouTube realm. And this is a brand that I haven't smelled anything from, and it is Rosando Matteo, and it's number 5. I haven't smelt that one. I really want to get a sample on that one, but this thing is compared to it by a lot of reviewers, actually. You know, I checked out a couple of reviews on this fragrance, and a lot of people were talking about this number 5, so I definitely need to get a sample of that one. But I just wanted to know the people that are, you know, that love that number 5, they may want to check this fragrance out. I'm not saying they smell alike. I haven't smelt the number 5, so I'm sorry. This one, of course, gets, you know, a lot of the fragrance reviewers on YouTube got it for the limited edition cap. This limited edition cap is basically, it's going to cost you a little more. First of all, they still have it in stock. I went into, I clicked on the Nasomatto website just to see if they had these limited edition caps, and it's still available from what I see. It's a phallic cap, of course. I'll show you a picture of the different caps on it, but yeah, you know, some reviewers, you know, they want to get attention on their channel, they get those caps. Either way, great marketing tool. Let's go under the hood. Let's take a look at some stats on this one, and let's start dissecting this one. The brand of Nasomatto, one great thing about it is Galtieri is an artist at heart. No notes published. I love this kind of challenge. I want to see what I can get out of these fragrances. So let's go under the hood. Let's take a look at some stats. Release date was, of course, this year, 2023. Concentration, just like the rest of them, extrait de parfum. On the nose, Alessandro Galtieri. Funny enough, Galtieri kind of spoke like, what, 2 or 3 fragrances ago from the Nasomatto line that he said he was done with Nasomatto and kind of really focusing on Orto Parisi, and it kind of feels the complete opposite right now. There's more Nasomatto releases coming out than Orto Parisi. Big notes to my nose. Now, of course, no published notes, but the main frame of this release, and there's a lot going on in this release, at least from my little sample. The main frame, the backbone of this release, vanilla. Lots of that, musks, lots of that. And the big boy player, honey. Absolutely gorgeous honey note in this release. But those 3 are your backboard of this release, the backbone. Now, The first thing that came to mind when I got this, you know, I saw the black bottle. I wasn't really, you know, really dissecting this thing, but I really thought this was going to be a darker Galtieri fragrance just because of the black bottle for some reason. No. So let's delve into it. This was purchased a little from fragranceline.com, not sponsored, paid full price for their little samples, but they remind me of Lucky Scent samples, to be quite honest. I probably paid more than what is in Lucky Scent, and now I'm going to launch this thing because it's game over for that sample. I'm done with it. Now if I want some more of it, I need to get another sample or a full bottle. This is full bottle cusp worthy for me, just to head you up. So this is my scent of the night. I'm wearing it tonight, and yeah, this introduction, this is not a darker Galtieri. However, it feels like there's some challenging darker notes in this that almost have like a filter over them, and it's I don't want to call it a fresh fragrance. I think it's like in the middle of fresh versus a darker scent, and it's right in the smack dab in the middle of that. The darker notes are really tamed down. This is no Black Afgano, this is not a Duro, this is not a Pardon. No heavy woods. There is sandalwood in here, there is some woods, but he loves utilizing that sandalwood. But yeah, it's not a darker scent, and that's one thing. It's right in the middle, like great for these tweener months, you know, spring and fall. Not really freshy, not a freshie, just something that is, it feels like there's a filter around it. Now let's get into what this thing actually smells like. And when you first smelled Sadonaso, the first thing that hit my mind was, this is it. And I'm sure a lot of you that are absolutely in love with darker scents will go, this is it with this one. The more I wore this, the more I was intrigued, and that's the one thing with Galtieri fragrances, is that little sample that I just threw, not enough to really do a video review on this, but I'm going to do my best. This is a fragrance that starts off very white gray. From first sniff, it has a floral freshness to it with some sweetness, and it's not, you know, bubblegummy sweetness. It's just sweetness and warmth. There is a underlying warmth in this, like almost a resinous warmth in here, an ambery glow in the back end. It's musky right off the bat. There's some powderiness in this fragrance. There's definitely some sweetness in here. The colors, what I'm thinking about right now is white, gray, and some ambery browns. That's where this thing has taken me. Now let's start with the three-headed monster in the scent, which is the vanilla, honey, and the musk. They all hit you at once here. It's sweet, it's creamy, it has a little animalic undertone from the honey, which we're gonna get into. And there's some interesting musks in here that almost kind of makes you think or smell like, almost like skin wise. It's not a white musk, it's not a animalic musk. The animalic feel undertone is from the honey in here. Now, the honey is the star of the show, at least to my nose. I really felt like the honey did its thing here. It's a raw, natural honey, pure honey. Not too many scents can do this. You know, a really good honey-based fragrance is L'Envol by Cartier, designer-wise, but there's many more. But this honey note will give you gourmand facets to Sadonaso, and it will also punch out some floral and fruity tendencies in the opening of this. I know that some people do get some fruity nuances. It's from the honey, actually. It warms the scent, and at points I felt there was a resin in here, and I was trying to, you know, no notes published, I was trying to figure out what resin, and I felt like it was a benzoin, because it had like a caramel like hue throughout. There's a vanillic tendency, of course, but that resinous feel and that warmth is very much in the back end of this release. It's more vanillic up front, and honey can give off leathery tones as well, depending which compound they've utilized, and we're going to get back to that in a sec, because it does have a sort of leathery tone, which we're going to get into, which kind of gives me a weird imagery. Now, mainly noses say they do get a pissy vibe from this honey, and honey can do that to your nose depending on your nose and your thought process. The closest thing I could think of when honey gets into this almost this animalic feel is Absolu pour le Soir by Maison Francisque, a gem, discontinued gem, one that did not sell well. And this is obviously much more rugged, much more crazy than what I'm smelling from Nasomatto here, but it's a good reference point of a quote unquote a pissy honey, like a honey that has almost animalic feels to the fragrance. Lots of that in the MFK, not so much in here, just a little bit of it in here that is in the back end of this release. At least to my nose, it's not big and bold, very toned it down, very not like reviews say. Personally for me, it's just a very small portion of it. Now, this is actually very tame, but just to give you at least a reference point for the animalic honeyed note. Now, there's some white floral tendencies in this. I was thinking jasmine in here. There's definitely some floral aspects. Iris could be also in here. That gives off a powdery vibe that I get, but I can get that from a lot of other notes. The tonka bean in this, which we're going to get into. I couldn't really point out which floral I was getting. Those are the ones that were the main idea for me. Jasmine, iris. If I had more than just a little vial that had no atomizer, I might get more out of this. But there's definitely in the opening, in the mid of this release, there's a floral tendency throughout this release. The vanilla itself, major player, but it's very much a standard sweet thing. Nothing too crazy here in regards to a vanillic note. I've smelled better ones, I've smelled worse ones. It's really just a standard one that runs through the scent, with the honey, which is also a sweet number. And of course the musk. Again, it's that three-headed monster that just runs throughout, and they have their differences of volume, we'll say. The musk go higher in the back end. The vanillic tendency go higher more in the back end, even though it's a major player. The honey is really your major player in the opening. The volume's pretty high, and then it really mellows down to vanilla and musk coming like at the same wavelength, and then kind of almost overshadowing the honey a little bit in the back end. But those three notes, even though the vanilla is not outstanding, it still does its thing. The musk is very good. The Galtieri musks, as usual, are very, very good. And the honey is outstanding. That is one thing that I have to point out. An excellent honey note, especially in this introduction. It's multifaceted. There's also a mild smoky accord here that faintly reminds me of incense. There's tonka bean as well in this opening that goes with the vanillic theme and the ambery backbone. The opening is many things, and at points I smell salty skin, and then I smell a latex-like leather, which is the daring part of this release. It's very synthetic in nature, but brings me to the use of it in Bulgari Black by Annick Monardo. This one right here, a discontinued Bulgari fragrance, the hockey buck of the fragrance world. And it kind of does remind me a little bit of Midnight in Paris here. Probably one of the most beautiful designer bottles I've ever seen in my life. This is where this fragrance brings me into this opening, the late opening and the early dry down. This composition totally reminds me of Monardo, but with heavy musks backing all this and that daring honey note to make it even more interesting. Now, those fragrances are very, very well composed, but how can I say it? Like, they're not too bold, they're not too boring. They're just really well done. And this fragrance goes in that realm, like exactly like the performance, the volume. The performance may be a little better in this fragrance, but the composition itself, but there's more interesting parts in this release. That honey and the musks really adds extra complexity to this release. Now in the mid, the Monardo-like latex leather with vanilla, musks, and honey keeps pushing. That rubbery leather is really interesting, and it's been a while since I've smelt that in a composition. Obviously you see these two examples here, very old examples of that, and that composition is really, I really enjoyed. Like both Midnight in Paris and Bulgari Black have gotten really good reviews on my channel, and it has a rather tame backbone, but at the same time remains very interesting as a whole. Now this part reminds me of the imagery that, you know, and I did this with Mortal Skin, that I did like some sort of imagery, and some subscribers were like, where'd that come from? But I'm gonna give you an imagery that you've been dating this girl, and you know, it's been, you know, just, it's been going well, and you know, it's kind of normal between both of you. You're getting to know each other, and you decide to go to a club. It's her choice, and she's dressed accordingly, and so are you. And then all of a sudden you go into this club, and it's all, you know, it's a different type of club. You know, there's people wearing leather, and people are into bondage and all that, and you're like, you look at the girl and you're like, okay, where are you bringing me? So she goes into, you know, to the bathroom. She brought a bag. You don't know what was in the bag. Anyway, she goes into the bathroom. You're just sitting at the bar, and you're like, okay, the smell of latex is in the air. You're like, all right, people wearing leather, fake leather, salty skin, people wearing jasmine and vanilla-based perfumes. And then when she returns from the bathroom, she's wearing a black dress, like a fake leather, you know, latex type of black dress, tight, has a whip in her hand, and you're like, okay, this has changed. What's going on? And you look at her the first time, and you're like, huh, okay. This reminds me, this perfume reminds me of that moment, the emotions that you're like, do I like this? Do I not? You know, the smells of this first impression, knowing that your girl, that was like maybe the girl next door, has a little edgy side to her. So this smells like that imagery of like, you're going back in time, and you're like, yeah, you can smell it here. It smells like that moment. Okay, I swear I'm done with the weird imagery now. Let's go back to the fragrance. This fragrance ends, it's a little more gourmandish. The vanilla amps up. The benzoin, tonka kind of feel is almost caramel-like. There's some dry vanilla pieces here, so very interesting. The latex still there. Salty, musky skin still there. Some woody aspects appear, so there's a soft sandalwood note that Gaultieri likes to utilize. I do get mild nuttiness from time to time from the tonka, almost like a smoky almond in here. Very interesting imagery. There's a lot going on, but this thing is so tame in a way. Like, this is not a beast. It really has a lot going on. Overall, when I initially smelt this, I was kind of let down. I was like, oh, this is it. It's kind of like a Phantomus and among others. I was just like, I want another dark Gaultieri, but I've learned to really delve into this release, and I really dissected it as much as I could and see what was under the hood of this release. I enjoy the Monardo DNA that I found in my second wearing of this, that it was latex leather, like a, you know, like a, you could say like a really synthetic bad leather, but it just works in this kind of fragrance because it has that vanillic tendencies, and just like Bulgari Black, it has that leather vanilla smoky thing, which brought me to a couple excellent designer fragrances. But I appreciated the added puzzle pieces. I was like, oh, okay, this is an ode to the Bulgari Blacks and the Midnight in Paris and that kind of mainframe. But then you start putting in the Gaultieri musks, you put the Gaultieri sandalwood in there, you start putting in this really awesome honey note that is three-dimensional. This starts making this scent so unique in a way. So I came in initially kind of like, oh, you know, it's all right. I might just get it for, you know, the collection, and I might just, you know, might learn to love it, or, you know, it wasn't a wow at first sniff, but once I wore it that second time, it kind of clicked that I'm like, oh, there's more to this release. So let's get into seasons, day, night, versatility, and performance. Seasons, this is a tweener. It will work very, very well in the spring and the fall, but I could also see this at summer nights. Honestly, all season long you could wear this. It's just, it has a lot of the factors, especially that orangey glow that really is kind of muffled, you know, filtered almost, that it's really toned down, that honeyness, the smoke in here. It has some darker aspects, but they're really, you know, filtered. That's what I like to, I want to use that word, that it's almost like you're not getting the full balance of the darker notes, but you know, the notes that are very gray, white, and fuzzy, like the musks and the vanilla and the honey, those are full balanced notes. So yeah, those make this almost all year round. Day or night, choose, doesn't matter. I feel like this would wear really well in a overcast night. I just see it working really well, like spring overcast, like there's some warmth into there, summer nights. Versatility, you know, high, average, and again, it all depends on your nose. Like some people are saying this is, you know, disgusting to them. I don't know if the whole marketing's getting to you, and I know everybody's nose is different, but you know, I would call myself somebody that's, you know, smelt thousands upon thousands of fragrances. Maybe my nose is more used to it. It's definitely not a honeyed, unique honey like Absolute pour le Soir, but definitely an interesting release that I think. Versatility, fairly, we'll put average for now, but I feel like it has more wearability than we think. It's just that backbone, you know, that Annick Monardo backbone. I'm going back to that. There's nothing daring out of that. It's very versatile as the backbone. Performance. Not crazy, not poor. Longevity was 7 to 9 hours. There's nothing too crazy here, not beast mode, and with average projection. It's a Nasomatto, you know, not too many Nasomattos will go under 10 hours on me and not project, but this is one of those, which it's still a very good score. 7 to 9 hours, average projection. It just never flew off my skin like a lot of his releases, so unfortunately, but still very good as far as performance goes. So my final thoughts on this release is that at the end of the day, it's a solid scent. I came in it thinking it was a subpar scent, but at this point now, I'm thinking this is a really solid release from the brand. Would it be the first one that I would recommend to somebody? No, absolutely not. It's a art piece. I think once you're in the Galtieri rabbit hole that you have, just like me, 12 plus, even some Orto Parisis, and you start appreciating these new releases a little bit more, a little different from, you still have that Alessandro musks and sandalwood, and you got those things that, you know, remind you of him, but then he's trying new things a little bit. It has very much artistic pieces to it and some highly wearable pieces as well. Hitting the right nose, this release I think would be a home run, and I can see some fans of his work being disappointed with this release. I could see both sides of the coin. At the end of the day, if a sample is done, which it is done today, and I still want to sniff it, I still want to dissect it, I'm intrigued with it, it has to be bottle worthy, and that's where I'm at with this release. And it might not be the most interesting, it's not the Black Afghano of the line, I don't think it'll ever be the top seller of the line, but I'm intrigued and I want to delve more into it. And because I know I'm missing a few pieces here and there, I didn't get enough out of this little sample to give you guys the best of me personally as far as this fragrance review goes. But it's such a excellently blended fragrance, first of all. That is one thing I'd like to mention in this fragrance review. Artistic, like I know Galtieri is. Excellent all the way through. Now we got to give it a score. As far as the score goes, out of 10, this was kind of a hard one to score. I was at that point that I was like, okay, I don't want to score this one too high, but again, I don't want to score too low either. I feel like there is a lot to get from this release. So I'm going to go with the old standard that, you know, in my scoring range, an 8 is the cusp of being bottle worthy. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think that's where it should be. I know that some purists from the Galtieri line, some people that like the older stuff will probably rate it a little lower, a 7 perhaps. And some people may rate it higher than an 8 to me. And possibly once I do get a bottle of this, which I will at some point, this may revert to a 9. I don't think it'll ever hit a 10 for me personally. I don't move much from my scores, and you've seen that over the years, but just a very solid release, a very intriguing release, an artistic piece, and a wearable one, which is something that is completely opposite of the marketing and a lot of the fragrance reviews out there on this thing that are saying that this is a pissy thing, it smells like this, that. My imagery, I think, is bang on. It reminds you of a snapshot of a kind of like a weird moment, but a moment in time. Not that I had a moment like that, by the way. Just want to clarify that. Now that you heard my take, I'd love to see yours in the comments below. What do you think about this release? It's one of those that I could see both sides of the coin. If someone's going to say this is a terrible release to this is a all-star release and everything in the middle, I can see it. I was battling myself with this release a little bit, but the honey note, outstanding. The Monardo feel in this release is so there. I don't think too many people have talked about that. This fragrance reminds me of these two releases here, and anybody that's smelt these, you know how well built these are, how versatile these two are, how easy to wear these two are, and just add the Galtieri musk to it, and then a really interesting honey note, and then of course, you know, you're getting, you know, a puff of incense, you're getting some tonka in there, you're getting a lot of different, you know, you're getting some resins in this release too. What an interesting release. All right, long enough. A fragrance that I can't wait to have in my collection personally, to delve more into it. And as always, a great pour fragrance will make a lasting impression. Choose your scent wisely. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Have a good one.